Hey friends, it's MJ from the Coaches Panel. I hope you're well. I do hope you're enjoying our 50 most relevant series on this channel. Still like 20 odd players left to go, but wanted to come here with a special announcement episode for you. There's something new that the Coaches Panel has got cooking up for you in 2025. Here to join with me to share with you something pretty new from the Coaches Panel. I got fellow panelist Jordox. Hello, mate. How are you?
Yes, very good, mate. Good to be here. Very excited. Looking forward to sharing what the plan is for 2025.
I'm not a big fan of stretching out a grand reveal, but I will for a moment give a little bit of context before I share what the Coaches Panel has coming for you. And it's been in the works for a good 6 to 9 months. So there's not a last minute, we should do this. It's been cooking for a long, long time on simmer. But the Coaches Panel's been around for almost a decade. We took a year or two off there for a period of time, but for the better part of a decade, the Coaches Panel has been a one-stop shop fantasy content machine where if you play Supercoach, you play AFL Fantasy, you play Dream Team, well, you can come to the Coaches Panel. We've got you covered. Whether you like a single season draft league, whether you like classic, whether you're into Keeper or Dynasties, even a bit of daily fantasy, Coaches Panel has got you covered. But for a long, long time, people have been knocking on the door of the Coaches Panel going, we'd love something from you. So we thought, what we can do is offer Patreons a special gift. And so Kane and myself ventured down a territory that was first looked at, which was Keeper League content. So we built the top 50 Keeper ranks. There was an 8-episode season that we do each year, looking at who we think are the most relevant players in a Keeper League. And that's loved and adored by our Patreons and our Spotify subscribers. And they're like, that's great. But what we really want from the Coaches Panel is content right through the season and through the preseason that is all Keeper League focused. Jordox, I believe that's coming in 2025.
It is, mate. I'm very excited to announce that this year Coaches Panel will be presenting a new podcast specifically about Keeper League and Dynasty League. It'll be called Finders Keepers, and yours truly will be hosting this bad boy. Looking forward to it.
Mate, I'm thrilled about this brand new podcast that's being added to the Coaches Panel family. Look, I got a ton of questions that I think our audience that are listening to this probably want some answers to just kind of help people through. So a Keeper League, you could do it on the Keeper platform. That is the platform that here at the Coaches Panel we choose to support and advocate for as our platform of choice. But a Keeper League is really where, as a draft league, you get to retain players for as long as you would like to, and you can choose the list size. Don't you worry, we're going to navigate our way through that. But talk to me about where this love of Keeper Leagues has arrived from, because I know you've spent the better part of 2 decades playing in the fantasy footy circles. What has it been about Keeper Leagues that's drawn you to it? Because it's a pretty addictive part of fantasy footy if you're not careful.
It is. Well, I guess it started when I first started playing the draft format. The concept of picking a player and he's yours for the season. Now, it's different to salary cap where, everyone can have them. So I always loved that aspect of it. And then when I discovered Keeper Leagues, so not only do you get a player and he's all yours for the season, he's potentially all yours for his whole career. That just opened up a whole new world of fantasy that at first was a little bit, how's this going to play out? But now when you're years and years in, there's just no greater feeling. As you know, you play it too, that, you pick a player from obscurity and he goes on to be a primo that everyone loves and wants in salary cap format. So, yeah, it didn't take long for me to quickly realize my true love for fantasy footy was in the Keeper format.
Yeah. And look, draft day in a Keeper League, for the first time you do your draft, so much is different because age becomes a factor. Your list profile becomes a factor. Then, let alone when it comes to the delisting phase and the redraft, and now you're into year 2, year 3, year 4. the blessing and the curse of keepers is there's always something new to consider. You can quickly correct issues that you may have made in your initial draft, or you could have built a dynasty. And I think that's one of the great things that Finders Keepers is going to do for the Keeper League community and for coaches panel listeners that are wanting to step into trying a Keeper League for their first ever time is not only are you going to, help us with our draft rankings, you're going to do that. Not only are you going to help us with the strategy elements, you're also going to help us with the redraft part. And so that's probably where Finders Keepers is going to start. Now, the first episode lands on February the 3rd. That is the good news. We do have the link that you can go now and subscribe to the channel in the description of this episode. So you don't have to go looking for it. We've got it for you there. If you're following us on social media, don't you worry. We will share and tweet that to you. Not a problem at all. But you're starting with redraft ranks. And what we mean by redraft is players that are probably being thrown back into the pool and that now you're helping coaches do that. Talk to me about how important the redraft phase is for an existing keeper league.
It's really important, but it's also, for me, it's the most fascinating part of it. So I spend the whole summer, while a lot of my mates in my, the first league I started, a lot of my mates, they tune out and they're like, Jordan, stop talking about it. But I'm just so fascinated about the delisted players that go into the pool, sit there over the summer, and then who are the ones that all of a sudden pop into relevance? So it may be a guy who's changed club, or someone's retired, so there's a role change, or the DPPs come out, so the change in the dual position players. All of a sudden, this guy, pretty boring as a mid, no one's really wanted him, has randomly, for some reason, picked up forward status. He shoots up the ranks. So I've always loved the idea of trying to rank a pool of delisted and undrafted players. And it's challenging because every league is different. There's different league sizes. And the other beauty of it is all the coaches in any league have different motivations for the upcoming season. So everyone's got different priorities.
That's so true. And then you throw in the mix of where the league sits. So am I approaching going for a premiership? And so building depth is the right approach. Am I developing a list build? So all of a sudden, do those first year players, do you really overly prioritize them? Are you just having some dart throw at a couple of positional change guys that might land? That's the beauty of playing keepers, is wherever your list sits, there's a different layer of strategy to sit. So not only while you're going to start Finders Keepers with the rankings component of helping us look through who's likely to be in the player pool so that you can redraft into these players. And again, it's not going to include the first year guys, but you do have some nice surprises for us. We're not going to spoil anything too much. But then straight after you wrap up your rankings season, you're going to talk us into all the different strategy elements with some tips, tricks, and some great conversations with some near and dear friends from the coaches panel. It's going to help people through that strategy phase when it gets to draft and kind of list management season.
That's it. So we'll start with the rankings because it's ranking season, and that's been good fun putting together. But then, we're going to really get to the nitty gritty stuff like, tips on how to build that initial squad on that initial draft, because that will, the game changes and so much changes. But when you start up a new keeper league, that very first draft will determine a lot of things for you over the next few years. Once you've been playing it for a long time, the initial draft is often long forgotten. But in the beginning, those first stepping stones are really important. And we'll look at things like, players to delist and keep, what sort of things you look for in a player and building on your list. So all sorts of stuff to do with the strategy and really just the fun. And the trading, I can't wait to talk about trading in keeper leagues. It's so different to single season, and there's so much that goes into it. And it's going to be good fun talking about it.
One of the great things about this podcast series is not only while Jordox is going to be your host and navigating you through it, it's going to be highly interactive too. And so whether you've got questions about your keeper league strategies, want to try to put a fake anonymous name out there so that others that are listening to it don't recognize it's you. We got you covered with that. So if you're wanting to get some thoughts from Jordox and others that are going to be guests on this episode, that kind of drop every single week from February 3rd, that's when it starts. And then every single week during the preseason and season proper, an episode will land. He'll give you great feedback and insight and actually give you not just his thoughts, although that will land. It will also help give you the strategy elements and the mindsets of how to go about things as well. So it's not just the podcast, it's do this and you're fine. It's going to teach you to how to navigate through some of the challenges that sit through building and developing a keeper league squad. That's what you're doing, Jordox, in the preseason. But once the season gets underway, the draft is done, what is coming from Finders Keepers for us? What are we coming to this podcast for to help us out with during the season of 2025?
Yeah, so once we hit the season proper and round one is played and in the books, we're going to start a pretty familiar sort of run every week, looking at things like, I guess, things like role changes for players that across the weekend that's just been. We're also going to look at, well, probably the big thing will be the waiver wire tips, which is, such a fun type of the week, jumping on, having a look, seeing who's available, considering whether you're going to use up a waiver pick or not to get that player. So we'll look at that. And then there'll be probably what I'm looking forward to the most will be something around trade talk, where we look at people we're going to ask people to send in their trade requests that they've offered or been offered, and we can have a look at, my opinion on whether they're good trades or not, and just flesh it out. It's just going to be a good yarn about all things keeper.
Going to be so much good stuff coming for you. If you're a keeper league player or considering to being a keeper league player, this is the podcast that the coaches panel has created for you to have conversations in and around that. Go and subscribe. Now, we've already got the RSS feed, so wherever you get your audio podcast from, go in there, subscribe. It is all there. It's also on YouTube, so you can go and check that out. And there is a Twitter/X handle that you can go and check. All the details are in the description of this episode, making it super easy for you to be able to get involved in Finders Keepers. It's a brand new podcast, not just series, but a brand new podcast for you from the coaches panel. And we hope as you're listening and watching this, you're excited about this brand new venture. Hey, Jordox, couldn't be happier about this brand new venture you're taking the coaches panel family into. And I know you'll do a fantastic job helping people with keeper leagues. And I also believe, not to let too much of a cat out of the bag, I believe you might be giving people a chance to join a keeper league against you and maybe just see if they can get a little bit of early victories. Maybe I've spoken too soon there, but listen out to Finders Keepers if you want to get your first hands on that code.
Absolutely, mate. That's going to be something we look at. And I just can't wait. And thank you for your support and giving me the chance to do it. I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, totally agree. So that's it. Finders Keepers. It launches February 3rd. You only got to wait a couple more days and it has landed. Get in there, subscribe. Make sure you follow the social media platform of X. It is in there. A brand new podcast added to the coaches panel family, all about helping and supporting you in your Keeper and Dynasty Leagues. Episode lands February 3rd, and then every single week during the preseason and the season proper, Jordox has got you covered in 2025. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you're excited about this brand new venture from the coaches panel. We are thrilled to be able to bring it to you, and we cannot wait for you to be a part of the Finders Keepers coaches panel family in 2025.
See you soon.